These are the stories you can't miss from Inside Edition. Watch.
It's a daring escape from a house that's about to go up in flames.
Come on. Come here.
And that hero herding the two little ones to safety is a babysitter. 15-year-old Savannah Strother was babysitting this 1-year-old and her 3-year-old big brother. She even rescues the family dog. We spoke to Savannah today. What was going through your mind? Were you terrified?
I don't know, it was just kind of a blur. Like, I just remember running out and feeling the heat on my back.
It's really amazing what she was able to do, especially for a 15-year-old, to not panic and to be able to get the kids out safely before the fire spread to that house it's really unbelievable.
The humble babysitter received an award from the local fire department, officially making her a hometown hero. Great job, Savannah.
The whole building exploded. We got caught in the fireball. We were only in it for, I'd say, half a second.
Abby Alexander was 18 years old when she suffered third-degree burns in a gas station explosion. It happened August 14, 2019. She had recently moved to Cambodia with her family.
My family went there on vacation, and we were there for a few weeks, and I told my parents, I want to move here, and I want to teach English. And then my dad actually had always had the dream of opening up a guest house in Cambodia. So a little bit of time went by, and my parents were like, well, we don't really have much keeping us in Colorado. We don't own a house. We'll get rid of all of our belongings and move to Cambodia. So we got a big roll-off dumpster and we all threw everything away and we all went over to Cambodia with just a backpack and a suitcase.
And as she hoped, Abby got a job teaching English.
Teaching English is one of the only jobs you can really get in Cambodia where you make money, roughly around $1,000.
A month?
Yeah.
On the day of the accident, she was running late from her lunch break. She was heading back to school with a friend.
So as we're pulling up to the side of this gas station, I can see the smoke and I can smell the gas. Just as we were starting to cut across, the whole building exploded. I told everybody right afterwards that there was a tanker truck that exploded. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I made that up or not. It's so hard to tell, and from what I know, there was never an investigation. So we don't really know what truly caused it.
Several people died. Abby suffered burns on her entire body.
But it's a very quick, like boom and then done. But I stopped, dropped, and rolled afterwards, and I got ran over by a car. And yeah, that was my type of luck that day. And luckily we had a coworker that actually had a car, which isn't that common there. So she was able to load us up in her car and take us to a clinic that was only about half a mile down the road. Then we make it to this clinic, and they're one of the best clinics there, but nothing compared to American standards, I'd say. So it's actually kind of funny. I always tell people, you don't wear shoes inside in Cambodia. Like most places you go, you take your shoes off. So somehow, after having third-degree burns to 40% of my body, I still knew to take my shoes off. So they ended up getting some trash cans and filling them up with ice water. They're like putting our burns in them, which we've since learned makes burns worse. They drilled into my bone directly to get an IV access because they were trying everywhere and they couldn't get any IV access for me. So they couldn't even give me pain meds first. They just went straight into the leg bone. And then once we get to this better hospital, they told me that they had to intubate me because I had third-degree burns to my throat. And I really don't remember that much afterwards.
She was eventually flown back to the States and was cared for in a Colorado hospital before being discharged in October, nearly 2 months after the explosion.
And that was a super long process to get me back because I didn't have international health insurance. So because I didn't have international health insurance, the US Embassy and the State Department had to get me out of there. And I had to get the biggest repatriation loan in United States history. So because of that, they took away my passport until I can pay that back, $250,000. But I filed for bankruptcy on it, so I think I could get my passport back at this point. But I don't think the State Department's very pleased with me because they had to go in front of the White House and get special permission for this loan.
And how are the burns now?
I feel like they look pretty good. I have not taken care of them as best as I should have. You're supposed to wear compression gear for 23 hours a day for the first year. And I'm still supposed to keep them out of the sun. I don't listen to that. I try to keep up on my sunscreen. But I was a stubborn 18-year-old when I got burned that thought I was invincible. So I didn't take the best care of them. But overall, I'm pretty happy with them. I'm very happy with my face because my face had 3rd-degree burns. And they were able to do experimental stem cell treatment on my face.
It's been 5 years since that horrific day, and ever since, she's been looking forward. She recently shared on Reddit an update on her recovery journey, something she's been doing every year since it happened. This time, it was an extra special post.
So I just decided to I think I put like almost 5 years post-burn, never thought I'd ever be happy again. And now here I am, pregnant, engaged, and thriving, or something like that.
Because of the burns, she does have some pregnancy complications.
So it sounds like I'm going to be induced about 5 weeks early and have a NICU stay and everything. But because of my blood transfusions I received, I have some weird antibodies in my blood, which are like super rare. I think only like 2% of the world has them or something. So it makes things a lot more complicated, especially living in such a rural area. And there's a huge chance I won't be able to have any more babies after this because of that. So it's kind of scary.
For the past few years, she's lived in Glendive, Montana, working at a school with kids who have special needs. Her family is still in Cambodia.
Like my parents both, they're authors on Amazon now, where they sell like self-help, like chakra healing books. And my brother's actually a physics teacher out there now. So I don't see them ever returning.
She'd like to return to Cambodia too.
If I ever have a chance, I would love to meet with the owner of the gas station just to try to get some answers, but I don't see that ever happening.
Do you want answers?
I think it would help, especially because we're so up in the air of how many people were injured or how many people died.
How would you say you survived what happened to you?
Like, I think finding the humor has definitely helped a lot though, because there's days now, even 5 years out, where I still wake up and I hate the way my scars look. I hate the way people stare at me out in public. I miss my old body, especially like seeing memories of what I looked like before I was burned and everything. And then I'm just like, well, screw it, because at the end of the day, who actually gets exploded in Cambodia? Like, to start out with, that's kind of a crazy story that I can even be able to tell. It's good icebreaker at the bar. I'm also active in some burn support groups online. So I like to be able to show people or reach out to people whenever they're freshly burned, just to be able to show them like, look, burns suck. There's no sugarcoating it. Like, I wouldn't wish burns on my worst enemy, but it doesn't last forever. Like, one day you're gonna wake up and it's gonna suck a little bit less.
And for Abby, with a baby on the way, it certainly has gotten better.
Yes, you're being detained. Have a seat. Yep, he's in the water.
A suspect allegedly tried to escape the heat from police by jumping in the water, but he didn't get too far.
Hey, come here. You got anything on you? Got a knife or anything? Yeah, I got one. Come here, come here.
Police in Daytona Beach, Florida say they stopped a man walking alone on a bridge while they were looking for a robbery suspect from a nearby incident. While cops say they thought it would be an easy apprehension, the suspect clearly had other plans.
Yep, he's in the water. This is going to be him on the bridge.
It didn't take long for Marine units to catch up with him and fish him out of the water.
On the floor. Help him with cuffs.
Richard Martinovics is charged with robbery with a weapon and obstructing an officer without violence, in addition to 4 counts of violating his pretrial release conditions. He's set to be arraigned next month. His attorney had no comment.
Mayhem as a mob on bikes go after a driver. He's repeatedly punched and kicked.
Watch as an asteroid enters the Earth's atmosphere and lights up the sky as it flames out. The fiery scene took place over the Philippines. The European Space Agency said it was just the 9th asteroid that humankind has ever spotted before impact. Thankfully, the 1-meter space rock was harmless.
Now video that will give any parent chills. A group of kids comes running home after they say a stranger tried to lure one of them into his SUV. Thankfully, their mom was there and the suspected bad guy took off. Lisa Guerrero has details.
It's a scary sight. Youngsters fleeing after they say a motorist tried to lure them into his SUV. The suspect actually got out of the car and chased one of the boys.
He just tried to abduct us!
Their screams alerted mom, Jenna Skolnick. The quick-thinking mom was able to snap a photo of the suspect's license plate. She also got an image of the guy who turned around and jumped back into the passenger seat.
I just thought to myself, if this isn't a joke and if they have him, I need their license plate to be able to find them.
There were at least 2 men in the SUV. Dallas police say a second vehicle, this dark pickup truck, may have also been involved. The 2 vehicles had pulled up next to each other before the white SUV backed up closer to the children.
He came to my car, asked me to come in. Someone trying to kidnap Jay!
What did he say to try to lure you to his car?
He said, there's a football player in the back of the car. Go to the back and talk to him. And I said, hell no, I don't talk to strangers, and I ran away. Then he got out of the car and started chasing me.
Earlier in the day, 3 miles away, a similar terrifying situation. This teen is cowering behind a car, trying to hide from a driver who she says had been following her as she walked to school. The high school student says the man drove back and forth several times, each time going slower and slower. She says he also kept staring at her. She ended up running to a neighbor's door and asking for help.
I could tell that she was visibly shaken and upset, so I just asked her what was wrong, and she said this man had been following her. She knew this guy was tracking her. She reached out for help when she needed it. I'm just glad that we could be there and give her a safe place to go.
Police do not believe the 2 cases are related. In the meantime, they're advising parents to walk their kids to school or the bus stop just to be safe.
I want you to all stay together.
How proud are you of your sons?
I'm so proud, and they were so brave, and I'm so grateful that they did the right thing.
He just tried to abduct us!
Talk about a close call. John DeBacker from Long Island Cat Kitten Solution had a scary rescue on the Wantagh State Parkway during morning traffic. He got a call about a kitten spotted along the center divider. When he got there, he didn't see her at first and looped around to look again. For safety and backup, John called New York State Police, who halted traffic for him. As he got closer, the kitten tried to bolt, and she was quick. John stuck with it and eventually captured the cute but feisty feline. The injured kitten was taken to Last Hope Animal Rescue and Rehabilitation. They named her Wanda, and when Wanda is all better, she will be put up for adoption.
Mayhem as a mob on bikes go after a driver. He's repeatedly punched and kicked.
Oh my God.
But look, one brave young woman steps in to rescue him, all alone, as she leads him to safety. She even confronts the thugs, telling them to go home. Floored by her courage, they melt away. You can see the victim limping, helpless, as his car was ransacked.
These are kids. None of them are older than 20.
The out-of-control mob smashed the windshield and dented the hood. The chaos erupted as the driver tried to pass the cyclists, who he says were blocking an intersection. Someone threw a bottle at his car. He got out to check for damage, and that's when he says all hell broke loose, and he was attacked by a mob. The hero who stepped up is 26-year-old Janeth Garcia. She told me how she disarmed a suspect who was about to bludgeon the driver.
It was a big metal tool. He was actually going towards him to hit him with that. I was able to snatch it.
You're 5'2". You must weigh 110 pounds, dripping wet. I mean, and you go into the danger to try to save this total stranger.
I didn't have no time to think. I just wanted to get him out.
The victim is 29-year-old Shai Lebeck, an asylum seeker from Kyrgyzstan. He returned to the scene of the attack on crutches to thank Janeth for saving his life.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy to see that you're doing well.
What do you want to say to her?
Oh my gosh. She's really an angel.
From the moment they met in high school, he knew this girl was the one for him. He even bet $10 that one day in the distant future they'd get married. Here's Amber Cogliano.
It's a glorious wedding, a bride and groom on the happiest day of their lives. You've heard the expression, love at first sight. Well, for Brody Richards, that's just what it was.
I'm gonna marry Savannah Mole. I bet $10.
Yup, that's the groom when he was 15 years old, betting his best friend that he would one day marry a girl he had just met. It was in high school in Plant City, Florida. Brody played football. Savannah was a cheerleader. Was it love at first sight?
I believe so. You get that feeling that you never felt before whenever you meet somebody new, and you're like, dang, I really like this person.
Carla was a classmate. She remembers Brody telling her how much he wanted to date Savannah.
We were just like, she's a cheerleader. She's not going to be interested in you. And he was like, I'm going to marry her. And I said, okay, well, I'll bet you $10.
Brody accepted the bet, and Carla recorded it.
I'm gonna marry Savannah Mole. I bet $10.
That video was recorded 8 years ago. Flash forward to today. Brody married Savannah in a beachfront wedding.
It's crazy to say that I knew this moment was coming within a couple of months of us talking.
Carla made good on her end of the bet, sending Brody a $10 bill, which they have now framed. How did you feel when you saw the video for the first time?
The fact that he was already saying that he was going to marry me, I was like, I've just feel so lucky, truthfully, that he's mine.
Best bet he'll ever make.
I'm gonna marry Savannah. I bet $10.
A grieving widow whose husband was shot to death in a neighborhood dispute was in the process of making her victim impact statement when the convicted killer made an outburst in court that brought the proceedings to a standstill. Les Trent spoke to the widow today.
That's why I killed him. It's as stunning a moment in court as you'll ever see. A widow is giving a heartbreaking victim's impact statement at the sentencing of her husband's killer.
I beg your honor, the harshest sentence imposed to the coward, the murderer.
Suddenly, the neighbor convicted of the killing let loose.
Pathetic coward was your husband. Stability and sanity of an entire family.
That's why I killed him. Spectators gasped in horror. As officers struggled to hustle him out of the courtroom, someone called out, "Burn in hell." Burn in hell. His lawyer had this to say.
I cannot tell you whether he meant a word that came out of his mouth today or if this was just anger and frustration that boiled over.
Neighbors say 75-year-old Omar Rodriguez has been a menace for years. Police have logged more than 140 complaints about him. Rodriguez was found guilty of second-degree murder in May for shooting 52-year-old Jose Ray after a confrontation over his dog pooping in Rodriguez's yard in Miami. I spoke to the widow, Lizette Ray, and their daughter, Rebecca.
A highly emotional time for you to be reading that and then to have this outburst. What's going through your head?
What I know was going through my head was he wasn't going to take this opportunity away from me and direct all the attention to him. He showed who he is now for the entire world to see. We finally got to hear his voice. Not that we want to hear it, but you can hear in his voice what a monster he is.
That's why I killed him.
Call it instant karma. An arsonist set himself on fire while destroying a business. Police in Australia released surveillance video taken on July 6th in the hopes that someone will recognize the duo of suspects. Video shows they arrived at the barber shop on bicycles, wearing helmets. After struggling with the door, one of the suspects beat the glass of the front door with a hammer. That person made enough of an opening for the second person to crawl inside. The empty barber chair seemed to be the only witness to the suspect deliberately dumping fuel all over the counter and floor. But the cameras caught everything from multiple angles. Lighting the place on fire didn't go the way this person planned. A small lighter ignited rags hanging from the gas can's nozzle. But the flare-up set both the barbershop and the suspected arsonist alight. With flames on his jacket, the person squeezed out of the broken glass door. He then employed the stop, drop, and roll technique to quell the fire. Both suspects took off on their bikes. It's been 6 weeks, and police are still looking for them.
There are still so many stories to tell. Stick with the stream for more from Inside Edition.
Powerful stories that change the way you think. Impactful investigations that change the way you see.
How many times has your car been stolen?
5 times.
Yeah.
What?
Do you think that you're a responsible owner of tigers?
I damn sure do.
Heartwarming moments that change the way you feel.
Amazing.
Now available in a place that changes the way you watch TV. Inside Edition, streaming.
What caught our attention today? This next story, and it will amaze you.
Amanda was probably the most selfless person you have ever met in your entire life. She made her life about other people, and that's why people were so impacted by her.
On our way to Chicago to take a little romantic getaway.
And I think that is one of the most amazing attributes about Amanda is that she lived her life for something bigger than herself, and she wanted her life to be poured out to help other people. She was faithful, she was steadfast, she was balanced, she was rhythmic. You know, she was always someone that was, she was like an equalizer for our entire family. You know, if anything got kind of out of balance emotionally or whatever, she was the stabilizer for everybody.
Davy Blackburn remembers his wife Amanda, whose life was cut short one terrible day in 2015.
In a murder that has made national headlines.
Shocking the nation.
Heartbreaking murder. A pastor's wife, a 28-year-old mom, shot dead inside of her own home.
Adding to the tragedy, she was 12 weeks pregnant with their second child.
Amanda was rushed to the hospital, placed on life support, but could not be saved.
I was a pastor and a church planter in Indianapolis with my wife of 7 years, and we had a 15-month-old, and we were pregnant with our second. We were 13 weeks along, and I left to go to the gym Tuesday morning, November 10th. And while I was away at the gym, there were 3 men who were on a random crime spree, moving from the east part of our city all the way over to the west side, which is where we lived. And they broke into the home 3 doors down from us and saw me leave for the gym and decided to take that opportunity to break into our home. And so Amanda, my wife, she got caught up in that scuffle. She was shot 3 times. And when I came home from the gym to find her on the living room floor, she was still breathing. She was unconscious. And so I called the paramedics, and felt like it took 3 hours for them to get there. It only took 3 minutes because it's just, you know, one of those moments are just so traumatic. Everything's going in fast motion and slow motion at the same time. But what I had thought was that she had miscarried. You know, she often got dizzy spells and in the middle of pregnancies. And so I thought maybe she had fallen and something had fallen on her. And that was the explanation for the blood. There was no context for me to even understand that someone had broken into our home. But when we got her to the hospital and I was in the waiting room and doctors and investigators came in to report to me what was going on, they told me she had 3 bullet wounds. And the prognosis was very grim. And, you know, I believed that she was going to be healed. I don't know if it was faith or shock or naivety or what it was, but I really believed that she was going to be healed in the hospital, because I just, those kinds of things are so upending that you don't ever imagine going through something like that in your life. So it just didn't feel real. But 24 hours later, November 11th, 2015, she was pronounced officially deceased. And it was actually 4 years to the day that we had packed a moving van up to move from South Carolina to Indianapolis to plant a church.
Amanda was 28 years old. The pastor chronicles his personal and spiritual repair in his autobiography, Nothing is Wasted, a true story of hope, forgiveness, and find purpose in pain.
It was a very safe neighborhood. It felt so safe that we hardly ever locked our doors. Sometimes we'd go for a walk with our garage door flown wide open. And so it was just such a random thing that it was so disorienting, not only to have to deal with the upending crisis, catastrophic event of losing my wife in such a violent way, but also just not knowing how to sort through the pieces of how do I help Weston through this? How do I help our congregation through this? And then there was a media firestorm surrounding it too. So it just was layer upon layer upon layer of just complexity with that.
Davy's entire life was turned upside down by the tragedy.
And one of the natural accompaniments to grief is guilt. People try to rationalize, well, what if? What if I had done this? Would that have changed the situation? And guilt can honestly get people very paralyzed because they have to begin to wrestle down and go, okay, I could not have changed this. What happened cannot be undone, but it doesn't have to cause me to be undone. And that's really where I came to, was realizing that there was nothing that I could do to change this. And so Amanda wouldn't want me to, nor would my family want me to be paralyzed by that guilt, but instead to move forward and figure out how to grieve and help my son grieve and help our congregation grieve. And that's really the existential questions that everybody's dealing with when it comes to tragedy or trauma in their life. The huge question of theodicy, which means how could a loving God allow evil and suffering to happen? And so I asked all those questions. Why, God? Why me? Why did you allow this to take place? And what are you going to do about it? How do you avenge this? Because honestly, that's where I believe we find God. I believe that when we wrestle with God, then we really find who the true character and nature of God is.
Of Davy's biggest priorities was his son Weston and how to explain his mother's tragedy to a little boy.
He was 15 months old, so he didn't know what had happened back then. But as he gets older, and especially now as our story has, again, experienced a lot of exposure with the book, and we've got books lying around my house, and he knows, more of the details of what happened. And so we have always tried to walk the tension of being age appropriate, to not expose them to something that's too heavy for them to hold, but at the same time, not try to pull the wool over their eyes in thinking that this world is easy. Mm-hmm. And I think that with Weston early on, he's going to have to grapple with that more than what another 10-year-old's going to have to grapple with because of what's happened to him. But I'm trusting and believing that when he's 20 years old, he's going to have a more substantial understanding of how to suffer well, of how to live well in a difficult world. And so we just take it a day at a time, a decision at a time, and go. And then we usually take cues from him. If he's curious and he's asking questions, then his heart is probably postured to hear some things. But we don't try to superimpose anything on him. If he's not grieving right now, we don't need to put grief on him. So we just usually take cues from him.
Davy also wondered if he should date again.
And so I felt really in despair. Even, I was 30 years old when it happened. So, of course, I had people come to me and say, well, at least you're young, you're going to find love again, which I didn't want to hear in the first place at all. You don't want to hear that, right? But they were well-meaning. But I also knew in the back of my mind, that's probably true. I'm only 30 years old. But when I finally decided, I felt like about a year later, after I'd gone through a really intense healing journey over that next year, I decided it was time to poke my head up and go, all right. And I started asking God, would she love me? Would she love Weston as if he were her own? And would she love Amanda? Because it would take a very secure woman to step in these shoes, especially since I feel like the assignment and calling on my life is to carry Amanda's story to help other people heal. And so this person wouldn't need to just be able to tolerate that, but be able to champion it. You know, if I go speak somewhere, sit on the front row and champion that. So I felt, honestly, that felt quite impossible. But I ended up meeting Christy at a CrossFit gym that I was working out at, and it woke my heart up. I cannot explain to you other than the fact that, like, for reasons I don't know, it woke my heart up when I saw her for the first time. Now, I didn't know anything about her, so I got really curious, and she ended up coming to my church with some friends, and she started attending the church and dropping her daughter off in kids ministry. But she avoided me like the plague. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I found out later, about 3 months later, why. And it was because she was too closely connected to my story. I asked her, you know, you've been coming to my church for 3 months. Tell me your story. Like, what's going on? Just tell me more about you. She winds up explaining a bunch to me. And then she said, Davey, I'm more connected to your story than what you'd feel comfortable with. I said, what are you talking about? She said, my stepdad is one of the chaplains for the Marion County prison system. And he visits the 3 men who killed your wife every week. And I was like, wait, what? So here, this girl that woke my heart up, that I've been interested in for 3 or 4 months, and now she's that closely connected to my story. You know, I finally convinced her to go on a date with me. At the end of 2017, we got married and blended our family. And so now we have 3 kids, an 11-year-old, Natalia from her previous marriage, Weston from my previous marriage, he's 10, and then Cohen, who's 4, he's ours.
As Davey continues to rebuild his life and broken heart, he has learned to forgive the 3 men who invaded his home and killed his pregnant wife.
You know, I knew as a pastor the right thing to do and the right thing to say. You know, I had preached messages prior to all of this about how it's important to forgive, that if you don't forgive other people, then it becomes a cancer that rots you on the inside. Bitterness rots the hand that holds it. And so, you know, prior to this, I had preached some really great messages, I felt like, about forgiveness. And then I was confronted with, David, do you really believe what the Bible says? And do you really believe what you're saying? Or what you say you believe? And so early on, I had to choose to forgive. It wasn't a feeling. I had to make a decision. And I think that is conventional wisdom for everybody. No matter what, if you don't feel like forgiving, you're not going to feel like forgiving. You have to choose, and you have to make that daily decision. And as I began to make that choice, then over time, my heart began to catch up with that. My feelings began to catch up with that.
The culprits, who were just teenagers at the time of the crime, have all been serving time behind bars. Larry Joe Taylor Jr. was sentenced to 86 years in the Indiana Department of Correction for the murder of Amanda Blackburn. Deano Gordon entered a guilty plea to robbery resulting in serious bodily injury and burglary. He will serve 25 years in the Indiana Department of Correction and 5 years suspended. Jalen Watson was sentenced to 29 years for robbery resulting in serious bodily injury and 10 years each for 2 counts of burglary. The sentences will be served concurrently. Davey has not spoken to the 3 men since reading impact statements at each of their sentencings.
I got to look them in the eye and each one of them tell them, let me tell you who Amanda was. Because if you knew who she was, and if you knew how she would have given you the shirt off her back, she loved people. If you knew her, you would have never done this. And you stole something really, really beautiful, someone really beautiful in this world.
Davey explains what he would say to the 3 guys now, if given the chance.
And I would tell them that this doesn't have to be the end of their story. I would tell them that I'm hoping and pleading that they would change. That not just a change of behavior, but they would have a heart change. And rather than stealing from people, rather than robbing and taking life, that they can actually give and contribute to people. And I would implore them that they would turn the page in their story. Because I don't want their life to be wasted either. The pain that we've gone through has been so deep that we don't want any of it to be wasted. And now I have to do my part to make sure that I don't waste my pain. But I would also implore them to do their part to make sure that Amanda's life and everything that's happened isn't wasted in their life too.
A woman is focused on her computer at an outdoor coffee shop. Suddenly, 2 women walk up and brazenly snatch her backpack.
Dad is off to work, but his little boy won't let him go. Look how tight he's hanging on. A boy and his dad. Nothing beats that.
She was a beloved fixture, an 80-year-old neighborhood dog walker who was always seen with a lot of dogs. Now she's dead, killed when a man tried to steal her car. And as Les Trent reports, police say the suspect is an 8-time felon who's now behind bars.
At 80 years old, Ruth Dalton was a devoted dog walker, often seen handling multiple pups at one time as she ran her thriving neighborhood business, Grandma's Critter Care. Then, horror. Ring cam captures the moment neighbors rush out to help the beloved dog walker, who screams as she's attacked during a violent carjacking. Seattle police say the grandma was killed after she struggled to protect the dogs in her car. They say the assailant tried to push her out of her vehicle and then mowed her down with her own car as he fled. Her banged-up vehicle was found a few miles away, along with the body of Ruth's dog, Prince. Police say the suspect stabbed Prince to death. Another dog in her care, named Bentley, was unharmed. Police arrested this man, Jamed Hain, and say he has 8 prior convictions, including vehicular homicide. I spoke to the dog walker's grieving granddaughter, Melanie Roberts.
She was everybody's grandma. She had that grandma feel to everyone. She always had a pocket full of treats. She always had a smile on her face.
And she loved those dogs so much.
She did. I firmly believe that if there hadn't have been any dogs in that car, she would have just probably yelled at the man, but walked away. She fought to get back to the fur babies so she could get them safely home to their families.
Neighbors are stunned that their treasured dog walker could meet such a violent end. One of the world's sweetest people, goes one comment.
I'm really proud of her.
What? How would you react if one of the world's largest diamonds was dropped into your hands? What? The reaction of the president of Botswana was pretty tame for someone who had just been handed a 2,492-carat diamond. This spectacular stone is now the second largest rough diamond found, behind the 3,106-carat Cullinan diamond found in South Africa over 100 years ago.
The reason we're able to recover this diamond is because of the technology that we use, which is the XRT. So that is why we're so proud of this, because the technology that we've used, or the risk we've taken on this technology, has allowed us to extract this stone intact.
Botswana is the second largest producer of natural diamonds in the world, behind Russia. With the rise in lab-grown stones and diamond alternatives lowering the value of mined diamonds, President Masisi says diamonds like this one mean everything to Botswana.
Diamond prices are going through a very difficult time right now, but yet every diamond remains precious and valuable. So we want it looked after, we want to optimize and get the best price for it.
The newly mined diamond weighs a little over 1 pound and has not yet been named.
Okay, well, as you can see, we have a brown bear here.
A harrowing survival in the Alaska wilderness as a 400-pound brown bear attacks a hiker.
Man, he came out quick. So fast.
It's like a scene out of the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Revenant.
Yeah, that was the hardest tackle I ever took.
As the massive bear pounced, Tyler Johnson was somehow able to grab his pistol and shoot. But there's a big problem.
I did shoot myself in the leg when I was falling backwards.
Yep, there's the gunshot wound in his leg.
Right here. but it went straight through my leg.
His other leg is in worse shape after the bear bit into it. Fortunately, Tyler's with his dad, an Alaskan state trooper who also fired at the bear. Trooper Dad wrapped his son's leg in a makeshift tourniquet and signaled for help using his satellite service.
Oh my God. That hurts.
2 hours later, a helicopter came to the rescue. I spoke to Tyler and his dad, Chris, today. Was it biting you or clawing you?
Both. And hit me, gun out, falling backwards. That's when my feet went over my head. My knee went above. I think that first round, I'm not 100% sure if that was the round that went through my leg when I shot myself.
Tyler, who's also nursing bear claw scratches on his shoulder, credits his dad for saving his life.
Because I know how fast you can bleed out. I put a tourniquet below his knee, and that was able to control the bleeding.
How grateful are you that your dad was there?
Infinitely.
It's a theft in broad daylight. A woman is focused on her computer at an outdoor coffee shop. Suddenly, two women walk up and brazenly snatch her backpack. But they messed with the wrong lady. Watch as she takes off running after them. She tackles one suspect in the middle of the street in Houston. So why did she run after the thieves? Turns out Claudia Calles' passport was in the backpack.
I had 1 second to think. Between tackling them, between throwing her to the floor, between grabbing the backpack, between looking at her.
And in New York City, this radio reporter says she was left badly injured after she was viciously attacked.
I feel somebody grab a good chunk of my hair, and then they grabbed my hair so tightly and quite literally body slammed me onto the pavement.
Kelly Dillon, a reporter with 1010 Wins, says that she was leaving work late at night when the assailant came up from behind.
These random attacks against females, it needs to stop.
This lady climbed a fence at a zoo so she could pet the tiger in the enclosure. As Allison Hall reports, the cops are now trying to find her.
After scaling a wooden fence, this woman is now face to face with an enormous Bengal tiger at the zoo. Poking her fingers through the cage, she tries to touch the 500-pound animal. Suddenly, the tiger lurches forward, nearly biting the woman as she yanks her arm away. The trespasser then hightails it out of there, jumping the fence as the tiger paces menacingly back and forth. The incident happened at the Cohanzick Zoo in Bridgeton, New Jersey. And now police want to talk to the woman, saying she tried to entice the tiger. We are asking if anyone recognizes the female in the video/photo, cops say. This sign posted right outside the enclosure clearly warns visitors to keep their distance and never to jump the fence to get closer to the animals.
Very close call for the young lady that decided to try to hop over and interact with the animals. She's very lucky that she didn't lose a hand or worse.
It's not the first time something like this has happened. In 2021, this woman carrying flowers in a brassy blonde wig and tight red dress weaseled her way into the lion enclosure at New York's Bronx Zoo. Now, another foolish move that has us asking, what was she thinking?
Powerful stories that change the way you think. Impactful investigations that change the way you see.
How many times has your car been stolen?
5 times.
Yeah.
What?
Do you think that you're a responsible owner of tigers?
I damn sure do.
Yeah, I love them.
Heartwarming moments that change the way you feel. Amazing. Now available in a place that changes the way you watch TV. Inside Edition, streaming.